My name is Pallari and I'm with Greenleaf Consulting. In today's session, we'll explore some of the key features offered by Databricks. For that, we'll work on a simple data model and we'll approach it in two parts. First, I'll show you how to run this model using job orchestration. You'll see step by step how the layers are processed and how the pipeline executes. Then, we'll switch gears and take a declarative approach using delta life tables. We'll recreate the same layers, but this time focusing more on type 2 table capabilities so that you can see how a declarative pipeline simplifies management and automation while delivering the same results. By the end of this session, you'll have a clear understanding of both approaches and when to use each in Databricks. Without ado, let's get started. I'm going to use different data sets for both the parts of this session. For the first part, we will focus on the property historical sales data set. And this data set is freely available in the marketplace area in Databricks. So if you want to work with this data, you can just head to the marketplace area, search for this data set and get instant access so that you can just start working on it right away. We can also take a look at one of the tables in the dataset. So because this dataset is related to property sales, you're going to find a lot of information about sellers, buyers, brokers, the information about the property itself, and there's a lot more in this data. So this is actually a perfect candidate for us to use in this demo. For this demo, I have all the notebooks already set up that we are going to need for our data model. So I have 3 different notebooks for the 3 layers of the model: staging, data vault, and presentation. The staging is the first layer where raw data is loaded. So it has the raw data without any transformations. And then we'll take this data, we'll perform some transformations, model it into satellites and link tables, which is going to form our data vault layer, which is the second layer. And then finally, in the presentation layer, we have aggregated data that is readily available to use in the downstream processes. So for example, if you're working on any BI tools or your ML models, presentation is the area where you're going to find the data that you need. Now, we have the information about our dataset. We have seen the layers of our model. So let's see how we can utilize Databricks to run the notebooks for updating the tables in our model. For that, we're going to go to Jobs and Pipelines. And we're going to click on Jobs. You can name this job anything. I'm just going to do staging, data vault, presentation, and add today's date. And then we are going to create several tasks. So what we're basically doing here is that we are telling Databricks what notebooks we want to run and what order we want to run them in. So I'm going to hit on notebooks. We're going to name this as staging because staging is the first layer that I want the data to be loaded into. And then for path, you can select your staging notebook. I'm going to leave all the other things as is. And then I'm going to click this task. Now I'm going to add another task. I'm going to name this as data vault. We'll select the path as data vault. We'll select the notebook that we want. And then it is very important for you to put staging in the depends on section, because in here, what we are basically doing is we're telling Databricks that if for any reason the staging notebook fails or has any errors, I want you to stop this run right there. I don't want you to run any other notebooks that are in this time. So because we have listed that data world depends on staging, so until and unless staging runs successfully, Databricks is not going to run your data world notebook. And that's what we want. So all the other things, I'm going to keep it the same. I'm going to create this task. And then I'm going to add another task for our final layer, which is presentation. We are going to select the notebook that we want. And in here, I'm going to set depends on to data world, because again, I'm telling Databricks that I don't want you to run presentation if the data world notebook fails. Now, you can also ask that why am I not listing staging in here? And the reason is because there's no way that presentation notebook would run even if the staging fails, because we already have determined that data world depends on staging, and then we're saying that presentation depends on data world. So unless all the previous notebooks run, presentation is not going to run. So we have everything that we need. We are going to create this task. So now we have all the 3 tasks that we need, and it's time for us to run this thing. So while we are running this, we can also go and see the running pattern of this. So while we're running this, we can also see a graphical representation of the run. So you can see that staging and data vault is done, presentation is still blocked because data vault is running. So this is a really good graphical view that you get to see in Databricks. So this is running. Okay, so we can see that our run is complete, and now we can go and look at the tables that we have created. So we have our catalog, property sales, and then yes, we have all the layers that we need. We have staging, data vault, and presentation, and we have all the tables in it. Okay, so in this first section, we used job orchestration to run our notebooks. So we didn't have to write any imperative code to run our notebooks or to mention the dependencies between those notebooks. But we did have to use the UI in Databricks to mention that dependencies between those notebooks. Now, in the next part, we can see how we can use Databricks to even simplify some of those tasks. Before we go to the practical implementation of the next section, let's understand some of the technical terminologies that we're going to use. We're going to work with Delta Life tables, and these tables are a managed framework in Databricks for building data pipelines on top of the Delta Lake tables. A DLT pipeline is a series of tables and views defined with transformations. By the way, the transformations can be either in SQL or Python, so you can use whatever you're comfortable with. When you're working with these transformations, all you need to do is describe your tables and the transformations you want with those tables. Databricks then automatically runs, monitors, and maintains these pipelines. It also helps in handling things like scheduling, error recovery, and incremental updates. Think of DLT as a declarative way to define and maintain your data warehouse or lakehouse layers. Instead of writing scripts to process data step by step, you just define the tables and their relationships, and DLT keeps everything up to date. It supports in streaming and batch data. It also helps in handling data quality, orchestration, lineage, and incremental updates. So basically, a delta life table is a managed delta table plus the orchestration logic around it. And it's designed to make building pipelines easier, reliable, and scalable. Now that we understand these terminologies, we can go and take a look at the data that we're going to use in this section. So the data that I'm going to use in this section is under the samples catalog, under the TPCH schema, and we have a couple tables. Out of these tables, I'm going to use the customer table and the orders tables. So it has customers and the orders those customers placed. So we're gonna use this data and perform part B in this demo. Now that we understand the data that we're going to use, let us go ahead and create catalogs and schema that we would need for this. So I am going to drop everything that I already may have. Next, I am going to create a catalog named GL demo and a schema under it named ELT. Okay. Now I'm going to create two new tables in my new schema, which would be stage orders and stage customers. So I'm going to make a deep clone of the data that I just showed you from the sample catalog, and I'm going to bring that data in the tables that I create. Okay, so now I have these tables created, and let's take a quick look in my catalog and my schema if I can see the tables. Okay, yes, I can see the tables. Now, next thing we are going to do is we're going to go into jobs and pipelines, and we're going to hit on ETL pipelines. You can name this whatever you want. And today we're going to create our DLT tables in Python, but you can also create in SQL because that's also an option that you have. So we're gonna go in Python. Okay, now here what I am going to do is I'm under my transformations folder. I need 3 files. So I'm gonna do bronze and I'm going to delete everything that's already in there. Next, I am going to do silver and I need one more file, which is going to be gold. Okay, so we have all the files created. So these 3 files are basically the 3 layers in our model. So the first layer is bronze, where we're gonna load the data. Then we're gonna transform and process into the silver layer. And then finally, we'll have the data aggregated in the gold layer. So as mentioned earlier, in here, we are just going to mention the what part. Okay, so what are your tables, what transformations you need in those tables? We are just going to write that. The how part or the orchestration part, we are going to let Databricks handle all that stuff. So first things first, import your libraries, and then let's create our first table. I want the properties to be okay. And the Databricks is also giving you options. So the AI IntelliSense, it's giving you good options. You can use them whenever you see fit. So the comment, let's just put a comment. Okay. That's going to be our table, and we are going to read it. And the table that I want is in the GL demo catalog and ELT schema, and the table is stage orders. Okay, and we'll return the data field. The next part, I'm just gonna copy it over again because I need a DLT table. And let's say this is so I want it to be bronze, the quality to be bronze, and then I have a comment, and then we can copy and paste this one more time, but this time we want it to be the customers table. And our reading table is also going to change. Okay, so that's all for the bronze tables. One thing I want to mention here is I am using read stream here because I want this to be a streaming table, and I have this option of skip change commit as true, and I'm setting it to true because I want my pipeline to only get newly inserted records every time I run it. So, and I have the same options for both my orders and customers table. So now we can go ahead and do our server file. I'm gonna import, just take what I need from the bronze file again. And then I might need some functions in here. going to import those. Okay, so the first thing I want here is I want to create a view, and this is not a table, this is a view. I'm just going to add a comment, and then let's create that view. It's going to be view joined. So we're going to take the table that we created in our bronze file, a bronze table. That's our bronze order table. Then we're gonna do the same thing with bronze customer table. Okay, I don't want my customers table to be read stream. I'm just gonna keep it at read. And then I am gonna let me recheck the code here. So I want a left outer join, and I want that join to be on. This is my df VWC table, customers table. So we're gonna go and see what we want to use for the join. Customers. So we have cust key right here. And let's also take a look at the orders table. Yes, we have the same key. Okay, so we can use that in our join. I want to join that on okay, this I believe had an overflow before it. Okay, that's done, and we can now return RDF. Yes, that's what we want. Now, this is our view, so we need to have another table here. I want this, and let's set the table properties. The quality, I want it to be silver. Okay, yes. And we missed a comma. So that was our declaration, let's have the table. So silver. So I'm gonna do df. I'm gonna do read stream and read the table or the view that we created. So it was named as view joint. Yes, okay. And then here I'm gonna take all the columns, all the column names in that df. So I'm gonna do dfo dot column names or dot columns. Okay. Now I'm gonna do df, and we're going to add a column in here. So I want everything that we have in df0. So basically the view joint data frame, and I'm going to take that and I'm going to add an extra column here. So I want that column to be LDTS, which is load date timestamp. So I'm just gonna put the timestamp in here. And not yet. Okay. Then I want another column. So I'm gonna add one more column. So with column, I want that column to be named as row hash. Okay, so what I did here is I added a new column row hash, and it's basically a hash value. So I'm concatenating all the columns that I have in the view joint data frame, and I'm taking all the column names in here in all columns, and I'm concatenating them with the pipes. So that's how I get my hash value. And then I will return the data frame. Okay. Oh, what is this? I don't need this. Okay. Now the next step is that we have the silver table, but I also want to have a type 2 table that stores all the history. So I'm going to show you how we create a type 2 table using Databricks. And it's a very simple process. It would just take you a couple lines of code, and you don't actually have to even worry about how to create it. The Databricks feature just handles it for you. So first things first, I need to create a table for that. Okay, and the name is going to be silver. Let's say silver active. So this is the function that helps you create a type 2 table. So what you need to do here is you'll uh, mention your target. You know what, let's first give a name to this. I'm just gonna do type to table. Okay, so now we need a target. So our target is silver active because that's where I want to store the type 2 details, right? So this is gonna be my target. I need a source and I'm going to take the silver table as my source. I need a key to look into that. So here I don't want this. I'll just stick to the order key. The order key that we have in the table. And then I need a sequence by, and I'm gonna use the LDTS column that we just added, which is the load date timestamp of every record. And finally, the most important step, I'm gonna do this. I don't need quotes around this. Okay, so I'm gonna use this store as SCD type 2 and type and set equals to 2. So this is what tells Databricks to make this table as a type 2 table. So that's our magic line, and this is our magic function. So we have our silver file ready. Now we're going to go and write our gold file. I might as well copy the function that I need here. Okay. So again, I need a delta table. The table properties. So now I will set the table property to gold because this is a gold table. Let's also add a comment in here. So this okay, and then finally our table. So I'm gonna do gold, and then we need to read from a table. So for this, I will stick to the silver table for now. And we're gonna do some aggregation. So group by so let me see what we can aggregate on. Oh, we have order priority. Okay, let's try and use that. Did I get that right? Okay, I did. And then we'll aggregate it on something. So maybe let's do count. And let's set an alias for that. So we're gonna do let's do orders by priority level. And let's add one extra column to this. Similar to what we did in the silver table, I am going to add the LDDS column, the load date timestamp column, so that we know when the record was loaded, and it also helps in the auditability of the data. So, timestamp, I don't need this. Okay, and then I'm returning. Okay, so now we have all the code that we need, and let's try and dry run this. So I'm dry running it first because I just want to see if I have any errors in my code. After this is complete, we can run the pipeline. So while this is running, I want to mention one thing. So right now, if I hit on settings and if I look at the pipeline mode, I have this set as triggered, meaning it will only run when I personally go and run it. But you also have the option of setting this to continuous. So you don't have to actually go and run it. Whenever any new data is loaded into the table that you're using, this will automatically detect that the table has new data and it will process the data. So as soon as the new data is in, the pipeline will automatically run and update the data in the destination tables. So that's an interesting option that we have here. Okay, so looks like we have an error in the bronze file. Oh, looks like we missed a comma here. And here as well. Let's try that again. Okay, so our dry run is complete. Now we can go ahead and run the pipeline. So as mentioned earlier, when you're creating these transformations, all you're doing here is you're writing the tables that you want and writing the transformations that you want in those tables. Look at how Databricks is automatically determining the orchestration logics, and you can also see the graph over here. So you have your tables, and then you have a view, and then you have the destination tables here. So our run is complete, and we can take a look at the tables in our catalog. So we can see the tables that we have created. Also, if you can notice, we have all the tables in here except for the view joint. And that is because the view joint that we created was a view in our notebooks. And that is why those are not going to be visible in your catalogs. But you would have all other tables that you create in your catalog. So now we can go and quickly check our data. So let's look at the counts. So this is our bronze orders. This is our silver. Okay, the counts match. This is our silver active. And our counts match. Perfect. Okay, now let's look at a few order keys in our silver table. So I have filtered on these 3 order keys, and we can see that we have 3 records for these orders. That's perfect. So I'm going to do the same thing in silver active table. Let's look at the 3 order keys in here, and we can see that we have 3 records. Now, I want to show you the type 2 dimensionality of this silver active table. And for that, let me do one thing. So I'm going to insert 3 new records for the same order keys in the stage orders table. And now we'll see how the results look like. So I'm inserting 3 new records in that table. After this, we'll try running the pipeline one more time. So this is complete. So we'll go to our pipeline and we'll run our pipeline one more time. Okay, so the run 2 is complete, and now we're gonna go and see the results in the silver and silver active table. So we're gonna go back here, and I'm going to run the same queries for the silver and silver active table. Okay, let's first confirm that we have the 3 new records in the table. Okay, so the count increased by 3, so that confirms we do have those records. I'm going to do the same thing with the silver table. And we have those 3 new records in here. Perfect. Now we are going to go and filter those 3 records in the silver table. Okay, so this is perfect. So we have 6 records, meaning the 3 records from the old version and the 3 records that we just inserted. And we can look at the load date of these records. So the top ones have the same load date and the bottom 3 have the same load date. So that's good. Now comes the silver active table. So same thing here, we have 6 new records. That's good. 3 are old and 3 are the newly inserted ones. Now let me show you the columns. So if you closely look at the columns, you're going to see 2 new columns added in the silver active table. And we have not added these columns. So when we were defining the silver active table as type 2 table, what Databricks does is it automatically adds these two, the start at and end at columns in the type 2 tables. And the way in which you would determine the active records in this table is that you would filter the end at column and set it to null. So by definition, the way type 2 table works is that whenever the type 2 table receives new transactions for the same ID, or in this case, order key, what it will do is it will expire or retire the old records. So the bottom three are the old records, and what Databricks did is that it expired the records at this time because it received the new records for the same order key. And the new records have ended as null because they're still active. They have not been expired yet. So if you just want to look at the active records of these order keys, you're going to filter the end at and set it as null. So now you will get only 3 records with the end at column set to null. And these are the records that are the most recent records for the order key. And this actually brings us to the end of the demo. I hope you enjoyed it. And I hope that now you're more confident about delta life tables and using declarative pipelines. Before I end this session, I am going to leave you with a question. When we were testing the type 2 capabilities of the silver active table, we inserted 3 new records in the orders table. But what if I had updated the records instead of inserting them and ran the pipeline? So if I had updated the records and ran the pipeline again, what do you think would be the result? Would you see the updated records in the destination tables? I'll give you a hint. Look at the bronze file again. Feel free to rewatch the video when we created the bronze file, and you'll have your answer.